Okay, take two. 3, 2, 1. Hello, citizens of the internet. My name is AJ, and I am the A to Z artist. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. If you've seen my videos before, and welcome to my channel if you've never seen my videos before. If you have seen my videos before, you'll notice that I have posted this a little bit later than I normally do, and that is because I had some art block this week. I'm not super happy to admit that, but sometimes just things happen. The idea for this video this week came from PopCross Studios. Christian Pearson, he's another YouTube artist, one that I've followed for a long time. I really like his work, especially his Avengers as Dragons. I'll put a link down in the description of a couple of my favorite of his videos. But last week, as of this filming, he posted a video where he collabed with another YouTube artist, where they both did an art battle, which means that both artists take a team of fantasy heroes or superheroes or whatever they want to do, and they draw them facing each other. So one artist takes a team facing this direction, the other artist takes the other team facing this direction, and then it looks like those two teams are fighting. That creates a battle scene, which is kind of cool and fun. And at the end of his video, PopCross Studios opened up this challenge to the rest of his followers. And I thought that seemed really fun. I haven't drawn a lot of my own characters for a very long time, especially a lot of my superhero style characters. Christian Pearson works a lot more with his superheroes and designing superheroes and stuff, and so that got me inspired to look at some of my old art. And then I started looking at some of my old art, and I started to develop some insecurities about some of my old character designs and not knowing where to take them and all of this, and so it was a struggle this week to build up the motivation to get the drawing done. Normally I post on Sundays. This week I started my drawing on Saturday. So I had to do 4 characters and a fully realized background in a day. And I almost did it. I got very close. I got most of the colors done as of Saturday, but Sunday, needless to say, I didn't finish it in time. I didn't finish the video in time, so you're getting the video this week. It's late. Forgive me. But even despite that lateness, I'm really happy with how this one turned out. There are issues and stuff, and that you'll see come up throughout the video, but I really did enjoy the process of digging back into my old characters. There's fun just delving into the stories again and kind of going back to where my mind was back when I was in high school. I think I designed some of these characters when I graduated from high school. So this is kind of a mix of a redesign challenge, taking some of my old drawings and drawing them again, as well as the PopCross Studios art battle. So without further ado, let's see some of my old redesigns, and let's get into it. Before the video starts, I just wanted to say, if you like what you see, be sure to hit the like button. Helps out my channel a lot. Leave a comment down below. I'll have a question of the week near the end, so if you wanted to kind of get into a conversation with the rest of the community, that'd be great. And be sure to subscribe. I post weekly, and I might have been a little late this week, but I'm hoping to keep that schedule going every Sunday. So let's get into it. This first redesign is my most recent character design that I've done. I actually only did this one about 3 or 4 months ago. I had this idea, which I'm probably going to do on this channel at some point, for a cyberpunk zodiac kind of group of characters. I don't know if cyberpunk is the right word for it, but I was thinking like cyborgs and stuff like that, so it's kind of the right direction, but less of a noir feel and more of like a science fantasy kind of feel, where it's far future, but there's some fantasy-esque elements with the machinery. And the character I'm designing right now is the Leo aspect of that cyberpunk zodiac feel. And the idea behind this world that I'm building for these characters is Leo is one of 12 experiments that this conglomerate of scientists worked on. it's not exactly, they're not exactly ethical experiments per se, but they're trying to better the world in some way, and so they're trying to merge technology with humanity. And Leo's entire, the focus of Leo's experiment was to merge the human mind with artificial intelligence. So allowing people to control machines with their mind does evolve into it does evolve to a point where one of the scientists' experiments, the Capricorn aspect of the zodiac, breaks free. That was one of their few fully genetic experiments trying to bioengineer life, and that experiment breaks free and causes war to break out in the world. That leads to a new world structure with Leo and his 10 other siblings, quote-unquote siblings, being the cyborg and robotic enhanced beings controlling different countries and all of that. This video is interesting for me because designing things, I've always kind of erred on the side of fantasy more, or realism to an extent. So like characters that are designed with jeans and t-shirts and stuff like that, realistic characters. And so delving into the realm of superheroes and delving into the realm of sci-fi, there's things I've never really focused on before. I have always really enjoyed those genres, and obviously I've worked on developing superhero characters before. I mean, that's just part of what I've done for, that's just part of the storytelling I used to do, and I still do. You know, I love coming up with superhero ideas. I just don't necessarily get down to drawing them very much, which isn't a problem unless you're doing a video like this where you have to redraw superheroes and you don't know where to go. Leo obviously kind of created a certain level of problems for me. I mean, that's not necessarily where the art block came in, but just the idea of him being super sci-fi, but I also wanted to incorporate elements of African culture into his design. So lots of the kind of flowing robes, plus the color schemes, using the bright oranges and other colors on black backgrounds. That was something from studying art history, I've seen in various pieces. I wanted to incorporate elements of African clothing into this very cyberpunk design. The main focus of Leo's story is that he controls America, or what remains of North and Central America in this sci-fi world. And so I wanted to incorporate elements of African culture, but I also wanted to incorporate elements that were noticeably either American or militaristic, because he's a military leader and a general and a president, essentially. So I didn't necessarily know what direction to take these things, especially story-wise. I kind of came up with the idea that maybe he's incredibly interested in the history of the world before the war. It excites me because I know there's more story to tell, because I have 10 or 12 other characters, 11 other characters, I'm bad at math, to develop and create their stories. And as I create their stories, his story will become that much more fleshed out. Design 2, when I was younger, and I'm thinking back when I was in high school, this was one of the first characters I ever really designed and felt happy about that design. It was one of the few designs that was actually straight from my imagination, but he's also based on a character from Marvel Comics. Originally, this character's name was Yosef Sokolov, which, if you know anything about Marvel Comics, Kraven the Hunter is a powerful enemy of Spider-Man, and his last name is Kravenov. I wanted this character to be the son of Kraven the Hunter. I had this idea where the kids of the Avengers and some former kids of the X-Men and supervillains joined together to fight either their villainous parents, or fight against some galactic threats, or create the new generation of superheroes. I wasn't sure at the time because I wasn't a very adept storyteller. I just liked the idea of creating kids for superheroes. So I came up with the idea of Yosef. Yosef, who is now Yosef Sokolov, who in this new story I want to tell with him. I love the idea of working on this character again. So Yosef Sokolov is the son of a supervillain. His father was the Poacher, a powerful superhuman who had the ability to take on the aspects and abilities of those he kills. So if he kills an elephant, he gains immense strength. If he kills Superman, he gains all of Superman's powers. It gets to a point with that idea where it gets a little bit too powerful, but we'll go with it. I'm still working out the details. But Yosef is his son, and having grown up with his father and learning all of these, essentially how to be a villain his entire life, he kind of grew disgusted with his father's way of life, with how evil his father was. And as he grew older and learned the same magics that his father used to empower himself, he decided to use those magics to instead help people and do away with the corruption of his family name. That's a theme that I've always been really interested in. I don't know where it stems from, but the idea of the supervillain parent, the child growing up amidst this great evil, but still breaking free and doing what they want with their lives, is something that's always interested me. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's just the idea of a person having to break free of their past, like proving that the apple does fall farther from the tree, which Yosef in himself is just that interesting for that reason for me, and I wanted to explore that character again, mostly because he was one that I could adapt in a new way. The other ones, he was the least tied to another character. They were too tied to their parent characters. They didn't have anywhere I could really take them without some heavy redirection. So redesigning Yosef was kind of a no-brainer in a way. Pushing him in different directions was easier, and I could focus more on different elements that weren't tied to Kraven the Hunter. I could still keep elements that showed the inspiration, but not the actual character, and so I think that's why I decided to go in the direction I did with this character. Overall, I'm very happy with this redesign. It's the least change from all the others, so it's kind of exciting to see. So I really hope you like Yosef the Huntsman. So redesign 3 of this batch is the one that I'm the least happy with. The character is the White Witch, which is a character I came up with that is tied to the next character I do. She's a magical based character in a universe I created that was very similar to the X-Men. There's a lot of ideas that I took from that. The idea was that these people, after suffering trauma and having adrenaline pumped through their bodies, they can these specific genes will activate in the body that give them superpowers. Kind of X-Men related, kind of Avengers kind of feeling. I wanted to kind of bring in a science-y kind of feel to the story. So everyone in this story would have powers like that, except for a very select few. And Alyssa Cassidy, the character I'm working on now, is one of those. She was one of those characters that would just develop magic in general. And I don't know how magic would work in my world that I had originally conceived, but I was like, oh yeah, magic. I gotta have magic in my world. So I just didn't think about it very hard. I just was like, yeah, she's got magic. That's all that matters. The story for her, I was really happy with. Another theme that I've always liked with stories is the character that's either tricked into doing evil or forced into doing evil for certain reasons. Alyssa was kind of the character I decided I wanted that for in my story. That's kind of a mean way to put it. I didn't want it for Alyssa, but her character archetype would have brought a lot of interesting elements to my story, if that makes sense. Alyssa was approached as her magic was growing. She was approached by an ancient magic user called Rakshasa, which, if you know about Rakshasa in different iterations, Rakshasa are demons. They look like tigers in most interpretations. Developed a character called Rakshasa to kind of go with the evil magic feel. Tied him to the Nazis because, if you tie him to the Nazis, they are most definitely going to be an evil character. I wasn't very creative back in the day. I had my moments, but they were rare and few and far between. Rakshasa tricked Alyssa into learning magic from him. He convinced her that he was a good guy, didn't have any ties to any evil organizations or anything like that. He just allowed her to believe he was a good guy, a good hero that would train her to use her magic for good. In the end, he betrays her and uses a magical item to take over her mind. Overall, I'm not super happy with this design. I feel like I had some interesting ideas with like the ribbons. It kind of feels kind of magical and kind of like interesting, but I just feel like it doesn't feel very cohesive. This is another character I'm going to have to put another pass on. For this fourth redesign, I decided to redesign my character Aaron Riley. He's one of the characters that I had probably the most interest in redesigning, and he's probably the one that I changed the most and got to a point that I was happiest with. He and Yosef are probably my two redesign favorites in this episode. Because Aaron was an important character for me. He was one of the ones that, as I was developing him, I got him to a place that was interesting, more interesting than some of the others. Aaron was probably one of my first, legitimately original characters. He was not necessarily forever, but for like a comic book superhero, definitely one of my first original characters that I had designed. He was one of the characters that, for that reason, I'm really passionate about. I really like designing him and creating a lot of different... I've created several different other iterations of this character, and not all of them are very good. A lot of them are just kind of riffs on possible takes on the same concept idea. I originally had him in a hood, and I kept him with that hood forever. For this piece, though, I decided to really branch out and bring him to a different place. I decided to work in his backstory a little bit. And the idea behind Aaron is that he's a character that is very heavily... The idea behind Aaron is that he is an Air Force character. He was originally an Air Force pilot that got into a crash and suffered a severe concussion, so he couldn't work in the Air Force anymore. And so he working as a security guard for a genetics lab. He was involved in an accident, activated the genetic code that gave him superpowers, works into that idea that I was talking about before. With that background information in place, I was able to kind of develop a much more interesting and unique character design for him, one that I'm much happier with, and one that I don't think I need to push too much further until he's kind of where he needs to be. There are some elements I want to change. There's something with the mask, which is the newest element that I'm not 100% happy with. The Air Force jacket, I'm really happy with how that turned out. I might make it more like an actual Air Force pilot's jacket with like the fur here and stuff like that. But overall, I think this design is probably the biggest change and the best change out of these four. Maybe not the best design I've ever done, but definitely one of the four, he's probably the best and probably my favorite character redesign. Being said, the art for Aaron is probably the one that pissed me off the most, to be honest. He's the reason for my art block, to be honest. While I put him fourth in this video, I put him first when I was starting to draw him, and so it took me about 3 hours to figure out a pose that I liked. Another 3 hours to actually get that pose drawn, because for some reason I couldn't actually get this guy drawn. It was the biggest pain in the butt that I've ever had. This was the biggest pain in the butt I've had in a long time. But as you can see, I finally got him drawn, I finally got him inked, and overall I'm very, very happy with his redesign. So you can see I kind of went a little bit through the background coloring process. I got into the coloring process. I decided to skip past the flatting stage, which I almost always do. But I did include some of the background drawing and flatting, which I don't normally include because I normally don't have a background or a really detailed one for any real for any matter. So I decided to include that. I tried a different technique. I wanted to, in PopCross Studios' original art piece for it, he had this very rocky background, like they were standing on a cliff face. I wanted to kind of emulate that idea, similar sky color, similar background idea with the mountains fading off into the distance. But I wanted to add a little more detail to the rock face, because I feel like I cheat a little bit with some of my environments. I just kind of put rocks in there and I hope that I'm good enough and there's no need to worry about it. This time I decided to add some texture to it with a very chalky looking brush. I made sure to kind of add some darker spots that way. I added in the moss kind of look. I used in Clip Studio Paint there is a spray paint airbrush like there is in almost any other tool, but this one had a very specific kind of particle texture that just sprayed on dots. As you can see, when it gets zoomed in very far, you can see this just a series of dots, and I think that gave an interesting texture. But it was very similar to moss or kind of grass breaking through the stone. I kind of took the idea from like Irish cliff faces. It wasn't perfect, but I think I took a step further in my environment design for that reason. It was something that I've never really tried before, so that was kind of fun of an experiment. The rendering, I tried to as I do with most of my pieces, I try to do a singular directional light source where everything is facing one way. The light's coming in from the top right, so it's hitting the characters and lighting them that way. I used the same lighting technique as I usually do. I blocked off areas using the lasso tool, and then I filled them in with a very, very low opacity brush on an add mode layer which I'm unhappy and happy with this piece. In general, I'm very happy with the overall composition. I'm happy that I actually did a full illustration for once, not just a character design. Don't get me wrong, character design is what I love above all else, but I want to either get into comics or I want to do full-time illustration, so doing just characters isn't going to get me there. And so me having the practice finally of creating a full background scene and playing with atmospheric perspective, stuff like that, it was a fun experiment for me, and I'm glad I got to go through that with this piece. Character designs I'm mostly happy with. Like with all four of them, they could be pushed a little bit further. They could go another step. And that's good. That's great. I mean, that's something I want to do. They're characters I want to tell a story for. And while their designs I'm not happy with, I am overall happy with the steps in anatomy. Like going through some of the my old art, like it's amazing to me to see how far I've come. And I think that's something that you should do regularly. Doing this piece allowed me to see that, yeah, I have definitely improved. My anatomy's gotten much better. My character design ideas have improved. While they're not perfect, they're much better than they were even a year ago. Then you kind of look at the tentacle dress of Alyssa, and it's just like, I still have some ways to go, but I don't know. I'm excited for my art, and I might have had that huge art block at the beginning, but that only motivated me more to an extent. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm happy with the illustration overall. I'm not necessarily as happy with some of the character work, but overall, this is a piece that I'm going to. I'm happy with the results. Feels a little rushed, but that happens sometimes. So again, sorry that my video was late this week. I hope you enjoyed my rambling and my my thoughts on the stories of these different characters. It was really fun to delve into my own characters, kind of see where my art has come in the last several years. This wasn't like a traditional redraw challenge. It's something I want to do in the future, where I take a full illustration of something I've done in the past and then redraw it again. But I'm glad I got to readdress some of these characters that I haven't thought about in several years. So, yeah, be sure to do all the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe if you liked this video. My question of the week is, do you have any characters from when you were younger that you want to revisit? I'd be really interested to see what you're thinking of and what characters you had designed as a kid and you maybe just haven't touched again because either you decided to go a different path in art or storytelling, or you just didn't think they were good enough. I want to hear all about them because I love people talking about their characters. So be sure to leave that in the comments. Subscribe if you like my other videos and this video. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. I will actually be posting on Sunday this week. So be safe, be kind, and have a little fun this week. Bye! As of this filming last week, that's a confusing way to put it. If you are coming back for the first time, okay, just breathe for a sec, let the kind of tension get out, leave you alone. Okay, 3, 2,